I put out a statement supporting what Tommy Robinson had done on these wretched grooming gangs. He was in the same statement. You've probably seen it.
Yeah.
Very carefully worded. I think he's not given the credit he deserves for what he's done on this vile...
Who, Tommy Robinson? Whoa! That escalated quickly. Just as the MSM launched a predictable campaign to force a surging Reform UK to fold and do a deal with the Conservative Party, the ultimate riposte from the insurgents' increasingly confident, some would say arrogant, not me, but some would say arrogant Chairman Zia Yusuf. He wants to throw Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock in jail. So this is Trumpian fighting talk, folks, and let me take you through it. In light of the weekend's fake news, Zia Yusuf posted on X, where else, far from wishing to work with Boris Johnson, a Reform government will commission a proper COVID inquiry. It will leave no stone unturned to seek justice for victims and their families. It is possible the CPS will then have sufficient evidence to prosecute Johnson and Hancock for misconduct in public office and gross negligence manslaughter. Between the 17th of March and 25th of April 2020, Johnson released circa 25,000 hospital patients into care homes, the majority without being tested for COVID. Johnson and Hancock sent large numbers of untested people from hospitals into environments most concentrated with the most vulnerable to the disease. Tens of thousands of elderly British care home residents died as a result of that decision. This is a catastrophe inflicted on the British people that will be investigated without fear or favour. So, that escalated, right, folks? This is like how Trump used to talk about Hillary Clinton. And if Zia Yusuf is wanting to prove to all of us that there will be no deal with the Conservatives, even if Boris Johnson were to return as leader, okay, I think we're now convinced. I would say, though, that such a call does risk splitting the right even more when Boris does remain a popular figure in some quarters for his delivery of Brexit. The Conservative Post, for example, which has recently really started to embrace reform, they warned, editor's note, Zia Yusuf needs to wind his neck in about Boris Johnson. Because of Boris's groundwork, the UK became the fastest growing G7 nation, built a £1 trillion tech sector, one of only 3 in the world with the US and China, overtook New York as the global fintech powerhouse and became the second biggest exporter of services worldwide. Language Zia should understand. Take the fight to Labour, Zia, and leave Boris alone. You're not doing reform, no for any favours. Or actually, she said you're doing reform, no favours, but same point. Now, I don't think, tell me if I'm wrong, seriously tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think many of us on the right genuinely want to see Boris behind bars, right? Surely we leave that type of lawfare to the left. But Nigel did make it clear overnight that no deal is on the cards.
If you read your Sunday newspapers, you'll see there's much talk of me doing deals with the Conservative Party. Many years ago, sir, they were a very, very successful political organisation, but sadly, they betrayed the country with open-door immigration, with increased taxes, with not delivering Brexit, and they are now going to become a party of history, sir, because we are going to replace them.
And there is a reason. There is a real reason for that sort of confidence from Nigel. Just as Reform membership surges to 200,000, the MSM all of a sudden wants to talk up a deal with the Tories. So we've had The Spectator and the Sunday Times at it in recent days, and of course the Mail, who the party's deputy leader Richard Tice reckons should, quote, apologise for fake news. But there is one issue that continues to divide Reform UK, or should I say one man. or actually maybe two men. A certain political prisoner, Tommy Robinson, and the richest bloke in the world, Elon Musk. Because in a new bombshell interview with the Daily Telegraph, Rupert Lowe, a very popular Reform MP, has made it clear he doesn't sign up to the Farage doctrine on this issue.
Elon Musk thinks you should be the leader of Reform instead of Nigel Farage.
No, that's not what he said. So what he's been, and I'm very honoured and privileged that he's, I think he is the world's most prominent and successful entrepreneur, for which I hugely admire him. He does follow what we're doing on Twitter, and that to me is a huge honor. I think he follows us now, which is great.
Yeah.
He has 215 million people following him. I only have 271,000 people following me, so I'm a minnow in Twitter terms compared with him.
Okay.
But when one of my lot asked him, did he think I should be? He didn't say I should or shouldn't. What he said was he enjoyed what we were putting on Twitter. That's different.
Okay.
Nigel's the leader of Reform.
But he thinks Nigel shouldn't be the leader of Reform, and he likes you.
I don't know where that came from. I mean, he did say that, but you're linking the two and probably stitching two ends to meet in the middle. I don't think he actually said, I don't know him. I've never spoken to Elon Musk.
Yeah. But he did say he thought Nigel should not be the leader. How awkward a moment was that for Reform?
Well, I put out a statement, that day, and I put out a statement supporting Nigel. I put out a statement supporting what Tommy Robinson had done on these wretched grooming gangs. He was in the same statement. You've probably seen it.
Yeah.
Very carefully worded. I think he's not given the credit he deserves for what he's done on this vile
Tommy Robinson
stain on our.
Now you saw there absolute shock and horror from the Telegraph dude, and you'll see now that he was desperate to get Rupert to backpedal and say something negative about Tommy, which Rupert would not do.
We'll come on to the grooming gangs.
I'm absolutely irritated beyond belief about it.
We'll come on to that. You've mentioned Tommy Robinson. Regardless of whether you agree with his position on grooming gangs, is it smart politics for you to in any way sort of stand alongside him or give him credit for anything?
I'm not standing alongside him, and I've said consistently, I was on Michelle Dewberry on GB News on Monday.
But you said he's not being given credit.
Render unto Tommy Robinson what is Tommy Robinson's, and render unto Reform what is Reform's. But that doesn't mean to say you don't give credit to people who've actually done good work on something. Now, I don't know what Tommy Robinson's done.
But he's a vile man, isn't he?
Hang on. I've said he's not right for Reform. He himself says he's not right for Reform. So you can try and make as much mischief as you want, but the fact of the matter is, we aren't going to come together. But that doesn't mean to say you don't give people credit for what they've done well.
A fascinating insight there into how the MSM works. He's a terrible man, isn't he? He's a vile man, isn't he? But also this very interesting game playing going on both on the right and specifically within Reform UK. Now, Alex Phillips is today's outsider. And Alex, so great to have you. I have to kick off by congratulating you for this incredible piece of work that you have done with the New Culture Forum. New Substack in today from Patrick O'Flynn, who describes it as by far the most important documentary you will watch this year. It is utterly brilliant. Can you just explain to everyone what it is?
Right, yeah, no, I'm delighted to actually, and all credit to the New Culture Forum. They were the people who came to me and said, look, we've seen you be outspoken about this online. We've seen clips of you go viral talking about women's safety in relation to immigration. And it's actually become a much larger conversation now. I mean, I see it being discussed a lot more on X than I ever used to. And they said, would you fancy making a documentary on this? And I said, absolutely. And so together we did lots of research. They are brilliant researchers. They are tireless and fearless. And then we got some brilliant interviewees. We made sure we got people especially who could talk about things from a Muslim perspective. And it was important to get apostates, essentially ex-Muslims, because you wouldn't really have many current Muslims or believing Muslims wanting to, turn around and say, well, actually, culturally, there could be a connection here between men coming from Islamic countries and the treatment and harassment of women, particularly Western women. And we actually dove straight into all of the facts, and they're so difficult to get. The UK does not record, until very recently, it's never recorded or says it hasn't recorded crime statistics by nationality. Most other European nations do. So that's where we started. We looked at statistics in Denmark, in Sweden, in Germany, in the Netherlands, in France. In all of these countries, the trend was undeniable. Rapes had gone up significantly. Sexual assaults had gone up significantly. The levels of immigration had gone up significantly. But critically, where they record that data, we knew we could find out who was committing those crimes. And in all of those countries, the proportion by which sexual assaults and rapes were being committed by men from Middle Eastern and North African countries was to a factor of 3. To a factor of 4. We're talking in some cases about 50% plus of rapes in a country being carried out by men not even born there, which when you then look at that per capita, in terms of how the percentage of the population, you can see that we have a problem here. Now, just before we went to edit, we had actually were in the process of scripting, had finished all our interviews. All of a sudden, the Telegraph had managed to collate data from people who are incarcerated. And that is where we can find statistics on nationality and nature of crime. And when they published that data, what we found out was in the United Kingdom, from the only data we had, which was essentially from last year alone, we haven't got historic data. But what we knew from that is actually foreign nationals were 3 times more likely to rape and sexually assault women than the native-born population. That is enormous. And so it was a great privilege to be able to make this documentary. Everything has the receipts. We made sure it was data driven. We didn't want anyone turning around and going, you're a racist, you're an Islamophobe, you're a xenophobe. It's not about that. This is about reality and what is going on. And if you import a lot of men from countries where culturally women are fair game if they reveal skin. Women should have chaperones. These men are used to polygamy. Women are seen in some parts of Islam, depending on people's, varied belief systems within that religion. Women are almost seen as no better than animals. When you bring men in from cultures with those beliefs and put them into a nation with completely different attitudes towards women, and actually in a nation that hypersexualizes women and encourages women to be quite permissive and outlandish with their sexual behavior, and you throw on top of that the influence of pornography. I mean, when these men are coming over from Iraq and Afghanistan, what on earth do you think goes through their head when they read about characters like Lily Phillips, all these women now who are trying to have sex with 100 or 1,000 men in 24 hours? You mix all of this up into a cocktail, and what do you think the result is going to be? Well, we've got the statistics, and you know what? I think what we have found out is the tip of the iceberg, because what we also know is this is data from crimes where people have been convicted. A lot of women don't report rapes. A lot of women don't report sexual harassment. They don't report being followed down the streets. They don't report to the police when men are getting into their personal zone. They're sort of aggressively pursuing them and trying to chat them up. Those things don't get recorded as data. And so actually, if we were to be able to measure that, I think the results would be even more terrifying. I really hope and pray that this documentary will stay on record, that it will continue to be shared and watched, that it will grow and the audience will get bigger. Of course, I'm not expecting anyone from the mainstream media to knock on my door anytime soon and want to discuss it. That has been the status quo for a long time. We're not allowed to. It's too dangerous. But actually, it's dangerous not to. Because at the end of the day, the safety of women, and particularly little girls, we're talking about teenagers here. I'm 41. I can hold my own by and large. But 13, 14, 15-year-old girls, they They tend to be a target. Are they not more important than not offending certain men from certain communities? And it's also worth pointing out as well, and we talk about this in the documentary, it's not just about white girls. This affects Muslim girls as well. We know about honor killings. We know about FGM. You know, brutal, medieval, horrific, animalistic practices that we've now imported here. So we need to get real and actually have a conversation about what we think is more important: cultural relativism and morality that is, you know, one size, you know, not one size fits all, but, you know, bespoke to wherever you might be from and while they do things differently in that country, and actually what we believe as a society is right. And any society that doesn't protect its daughters is frankly not civilized, is backwards, it's evil. And we should have no time for that in this country. A society that does not protect its vulnerable, its women and its girls, is not a place anyone should want to live.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. Amen. And you know what? Two thoughts I have. But first, this episode is sponsored by Manscaped, the brand trusted by over 11 million men worldwide for their face and body trimmers, hygiene essentials, and premium boxers. If so many men swear by them, including me, you can bet your Valentine will too. And guys, this is your last chance for Valentine's Day, okay? It's Friday, so be very scared if you haven't sorted your present yet. And this year, there is an opportunity to raise the bar, because I'm sure you've watched your man try for that rom-com leading man charm only to land in scruffy sidekick territory. Not this year. We're treating them to the VIP experience. Meet the Handyman Rocket Man Special Edition from Manscaped, a sleek, compact face grooming essential that guarantees your partner's face is on track for heartthrob status all year long. Now available in the Special Edition Rocket Man colorway featuring gold and black. But just a quick word of advice. There are limited quantities available in this color, so you'll need to act fast, and you can use the code Outspoken, by the way, for 20% off your entire order and free international shipping at manscaped.com. But let me tell you what's incredible about the Handyman. It's cordless and designed for convenience. It easily fits in a bathroom drawer or slips into an overnight or gym bag for easy grooming on the go. It's also perfect for those last-second touch-ups when your reservation is in 15 minutes and he's looking a bit more lost in the woods than leading man in a love story. Engineered with a unique dual-blade system, it features both a standard foil shaver and a long hair trimming blade to handle up to 3 days of beard growth. And it's equipped with skin-safe technology designed to reduce nicks and cuts for the perfect clean shave. And after all, who wants a sharp reminder of their grooming session, right, on a romantic evening out? So whether your guy is a grooming newbie or a seasoned pro, the Handyman in this special edition color is the perfect upgrade, just in time for you to make this Valentine's Day extra special. Manscaped has a 30-day money back guarantee though, so it's totally risk-free. And as I say, you can use the code Outspoken and get 20% off your entire order and free international shipping at checkout. That's manscaped.com, using the code Outspoken for free shipping and a whopping 20% discount on your entire order. But now, back to the show. The New Culture Forum says this is one of the most important videos we've made, and they have done so much important work. So that says a lot. And secondly, Alex, just thinking how incredible that since you have gone independent, you are now able to do this breadth of work, make a real difference that you just would not be able to if you were still constrained and tied into the mainstream media. So I'm so proud of you. This is incredible. I watched it yesterday.
We can remember one particular channel that used to say to me, can you stop banging on about that women's stuff? Yeah. I was told not to do it anymore.
Yeah, so exactly.
I left that channel. And now look.
I do remember that. I do remember that actually, whereas I was saying, no, go. It was incredible. Okay, Alex, is it really sensible? And look, we're pretty much both on the Reform UK train, right? Is it really sensible to start talking about locking up Boris Johnson for COVID crimes?
Well, you know, there's many things that one might want to lock Boris Johnson up for. Is it sensible? No. Is it headline grabbing? Yes. Is it sort of the nature of politics now that people say these outlandish things? Perhaps. But, there's actually far worse things in many respects that Boris Johnson did. Well, no, I did proportionally. Maybe there isn't. But I think to some degree, when it comes to COVID, I mean, locking the society down for over a year and a half, and I'd love to know, the COVID inquiry is not going to look into this, but I would love to know the ramifications of that in terms of the mental health of children who missed education, people who commit suicide because suddenly they lost their businesses. The fact that we've got all these economic ramifications now, society is still massively struggling as a result of those policies. But I do think by and large Boris Johnson's instinct was right, and everyone was scrambling about not really knowing what they were doing. And so the idea of throwing Boris Johnson in particular in prison for that seems rather outlandish and not circumspect. But I would say this: the Conservative Party are not to be underestimated. We should not look back on them with rose-tinted glasses and go, oh, well, we should try and save them. Oh, well, really what should happen is Reform UK and the Conservative Party should do a deal. They need to be finished. If people knew some of the things that I knew, I mean, I remember when Nigel Farage stood down at Brexit Party candidates in 2019 in the Boris Johnson snap election and made that deal with Boris, because he was told on one side, he was told by the Conservatives, hey, if you don't do this, then you could end up with Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister, and then Brexit will be dead in the water. And Nigel knew what was the most important thing, not his own party, but the project, the country, Brexit. But there were other things going on that meant he had to stand down all of those candidates. The Conservative Party had set up an anti-Brexit party unit, like they now have an anti-reform unit. And what this unit did, it wasn't just digging around to try and find peccadillos and social media posts and all of that nonsense. They were actively trying to bribe people, donors and candidates. They had a list called Men and Measures. I know this for a fact. And on that list, they had a number of people that they're going to offer, defect to us or don't stand, and they were going to offer jobs in this particular industry, or, we're going to not investigate this, we won't reveal this to the newspaper. They were essentially blackmailing. And I remember one day when they printed the names and addresses of a load of Reform UK candidates in the Daily Mail, basically saying these people are a threat to the country because if they stand, a Conservative won't win the seats, Brexit will be lost, Jeremy Corbyn will be Prime Minister. That's the sort of crap that dictators do. That's the sort of thing I'd expect from Erdogan in Turkey, trying to frame and bully and intimidate another party's candidates through its sort of owned media, if you will. And like I said, when I actually reported the Conservative Party, get this, I reported the Conservative Party to the Met Police, because using your position as the government and offering people peerages or particular jobs if they didn't stand as a candidate, frankly, is against the law. Of course, the Met Police didn't even respond to me. I was on Question Time. People can go back on YouTube and look this up. At the same time as James Cleverly, who at that point was Conservative Party chairman. And I brought this up. And I said to him, what is under the Christmas tree this year? Is it a peerage or is it a punishment? I mean, the Conservatives don't play nice. They're riddled with blackmail and factions and cover-ups. I know all sorts of things about people in the Conservative Party that if they came to light would destroy them. They're one of the filthiest, nastiest, most unpleasant organisations. No way should we be looking to hold their hands and help them out of the dustbin of history. They deserve to be written off. And I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them. And that has to include, I'm afraid, Boris Johnson, as beloved as people think he is. He was presiding over the Conservative Party when this blackmailing was taking place.
Fighting talk. I love it. I do think that Boris's time in frontline politics is over. And I used to believe quite strongly that there would be time for a Boris comeback. I don't think Zia is right to talk about locking him up, though. I just don't think dividing the right in that way is good. Alex, I know you're very much not about focusing in on the minutiae of this issue, but can I just ask you about the Daily Telegraph interview with Rupert Lowe? Because it was a change in language. It's bold, the way that he's talking about Tommy Robinson, right? And it is counter to what Mr. Farage is doing.
Right. I mean, first of all, can we just point out the sort of a peculiar setup of Rupert doing the biggest man spread I've ever seen on those benches, and Gordon Rayner crossing his legs like he's been castrated. I mean, it's such a funny juxtaposition. I was watching it like, oh my goodness. Also, you know, I love the Telegraph. I used to write for the Telegraph from time to time. And I thought Gordon Rayner's line of questioning, where he was trying to state as fact, Tommy Robinson's vile, isn't he? He's awful, isn't he? He's disgusting, isn't he? I was like, oh my God, I wish Rupert Lowe had turned it around and said, why? Why do you think he's vile? And challenge that. There you go. Look at that. Look at that. You could actually fit Gordon Rayner's legs inside that gaping Rupert Lowe's thighs. It's amazing. I love Rupert Lowe. The man is a G. He's so class. He's such a class act. I've always loved him with Brexit Party MEPs. He's just brilliant. And he's so honourable. And the thing is, look, Nigel's been in the game a long time. And he knows that if Rupert Lowe turns around and says, do you know what? Tommy Robinson's done some good things. The media won't bother talking about it. He can get away with it. Like I actually, by and large, have managed to get away with saying the same thing. If Nigel said it, it's the end. It would be every headline everywhere. They were like lemmings. They follow each other. They do exactly what everyone else does, which is also, you know, I think the Telegraph's line of questioning on this is just unimaginative. The conversation's being had. Are we still going to be asking the same bloody question in 6 months' time? Do you like Tommy Robinson? It's not even a thing. It's an invented thing. Tommy Robinson's in prison, so no one can go to him and say, oh, by the way, have you been begging reform to stand as an MP? He hasn't. So this is all confected, and it's unimaginative that somebody who's a brilliant political journalist should feel the need to go down that route and ask those questions when there are so many more interesting things to talk about. But Rupert can get away with what Rupert said and done without anyone batting an eyelid. But, you know, Nigel just has to sort of sneeze, and it sounds like the word Tommy, and he would be absolutely castigated for it. And Nigel knows this. So Nigel has just learned to maneuver a bit better, frankly, and good on him. I think he's doing the right thing. I don't think there's really a division in reform over this at all. I think it comes down to what personalities can say what and what personalities can't. I mean, even when you look at some of the stuff that Lee Anderson says, if it was coming out of Nigel's mouth, he would be in trouble.
Yes, because he did also speak up for Tommy Robinson, we should say, last week in the Daily Express, which was interesting. And maybe the Overton window will shift. But no, fascinating insight, of course, from Alex, who knows all of these men incredibly well. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.